Good evening to those bored enough to watch. Generally, first-person shooters tend to not be the kinds of games I enjoy. For those who don't know, I generally tend to enjoy more story-driven games. And while there are exceptions to that such as Minecraft, I generally tend to spend my time following such games. I feel as though the story a game can tell is fun to follow. I like there being an end to a game because it's able to capitalize on the idea that the time you'd ultimately spend exploring the world it offers to be limited. When it comes to games such as that of Yakuza 0 and Sonic Adventure 2, the only downside is that I can't play those games for the first time ever again. That aspect is kind of saddening, that I won't find myself absolutely blown away by an integral moment in the game, or I won't be able to fully enjoy the perks of playing a game for the first time again. But then again, there are some upsides to it too. I know which parts of a game I might not like, and I know what to do in certain areas of a game where I'd have no clue what to do in my first playthrough. As sentimental as we can get over the games we love and not being able to enjoy it for the first time again, we should always remind ourselves that we should avoid being sad that our adventure is over. We should smile because it happened. I could ramble about this sentimental feeling that one tends to get when they finish a video game all day, but that isn't what I want to talk about in this video. There are games out there which aren't story driven, and there are games of this nature that I tend to enjoy. I have my preferences when it comes to gaming, but I'm not opposed to games which don't fall under them. One of the genre of games that I generally tend not to play is that of first-person shooter games. It's not because I think they're bad, but mostly because I feel as though they don't exactly interest me. I have exceptions, such as that of Phantom Forces on Roblox, and the subject of today's video, Team Fortress 2. I've played these games as a young child when I thought playing first-person shooter games was cool, and while at times it definitely is, I'd prefer to not spend 900 hours on one of these games again. TF2 and Phantom Forces are games I still play every now and again, mostly because they are good games to play when I want to revisit memory lane while killing both people and time. I commonly find TF2 to be a game where I visit it very rarely, but when I do, it's an enjoyable experience. Don't be mistaken, I am not good at these games in any way, shape or form, but nonetheless I find it to be fun. There are a lot of things I like about TF2, and seeing the way that this game has been treated by Valve in recent times has led me to a path of confusion in the form of learning about the game's development, and why they would abandon such a beautiful project which took years and years worth of work to find its footing. So with that, I want to take you back to 1996. The original Team Fortress was developed by a small Australian team comprising of Robin Walker and John Cook as a free mod for the game Quake, released in 1996 for the PC. When the two were employed by Valve in 1998, they began working on Team Fortress 2 as an expansion pack for Half-Life, and gave a release date for the end of that year. So in 1999, they released Team Fortress Classic, a port of the original mod as a mod for Half-Life, and with that, continued planning what Team Fortress 2 would be as a game. During E3 of 1999, in which the game looked as if though it had a more realistic style compared to what we got in the final version, in mid-2000, Valve had stated that the game would be delayed for a second time, this time attributing the delay to switching development to the studio's in-house engine, Source. Following this, Valve would be silent on the game's state for 4 years, and in the meantime Robin Walker and John Cook worked on a multitude of other Valve titles. For example, Walker worked as a designer for Half-Life 2 Episode 1, whereas Cook worked on the platform we know today as Steam. Walker had stated that Valve had built 3 or 4 different versions of the game before settling on its final design, but before Half-Life 2's release in 2004, we'd get news from Valve's marketing director, Doug Lombardi, I'm very sorry if I butchered that name, that Team Fortress 2 was still in development. After another 2 years, Valve reintroduced Team Fortress 2 at the 2006 EA Summer event, and so with that, we fast forward to October 10th of 2007, where the game would finally be released to Steam, and I think that the amount of work that this game had put into it shows. The game is genuinely great, and there are a lot of things I want to talk about when it comes to discussing its gameplay as well as so much more. This game, in the amount of time it's been out, has been somewhat abandoned by Valve, and I don't think that this game deserves the treatment it gets by the same company that made it and invested nearly a decade of work into it. But first, I want to talk about what makes this game so great, and what makes it such a genuinely enjoyable experience. So, with that, let's discuss Team Fortress 2. Team Fortress 2 is a game that sees you load into a map and its respective game mode, payload is the one of which you're seeing here, and play against other players using the 9 different classes in the game. I personally tend to frequent utilization of the Scout, though there are others you can play with depending on your own preference. Before I get into discussing the gameplay further and what I like about it, let me make something clear. I am by no means good at this game, and I hope the footage you're seeing here makes that evidently clear, but nonetheless I still enjoy this game casually, and there are still a lot of things I enjoy about it despite not being a particular particularly skilled player at the game. The first thing I want to mention in regards to this game is its visuals and how beautiful it is to look at. Despite this game being over a decade years old, I still love the cartoonish art style it embodies and how it seamlessly blends into the lighting and shading. And despite all of this, it still ran smoothly for me even while recording, especially looking at what the game seemingly looked like in 1999 and 2003 and how the team seemingly wanted a more realistic, modern warfare style for the game. I am thankful it was changed to the style we have now, as it really does stand out in comparison to what we would have gotten if the game had released in the state it was in during those times. I really enjoy this game's gameplay and its addictive nature, especially while gathering footage for this game. I found it hard to put down to write notes, and if anything, I wanted to continue playing this game. I found the several amount of maps to play in to be fun to explore and more importantly play in. There's also several game modes you can play in this game. For example, what you're seeing me play here is that of the payload mode, which sees you either needing to push this cart to a designated location or stop the payload from reaching said location. It's genuinely fun to play through and prioritize fighting for the sole purpose of pushing or stopping the cart. While I'm okay with playing through anything in this game, I find this one to be the most enjoyable, and if anything, I appreciate the fact that this game gives us several modes to choose from. Another mode that I like to play is that of man versus machine, a mode that sees you teaming up with players against waves of robots. It was a mode that I found to be genuinely fun and enjoyable, and even during the times I played this game as a younger child, it would be this mode that I spent the most time with. In between waves of robots in the game, you can also buy upgrades for yourself to enhance your performance. For example, you would ideally want to upgrade as much as possible, as the waves gradually get more and more harder to deal with as the mode goes on. This ultimately makes things a lot more interesting, due to the fact that as opposed to dealing with the same thing over and over, you need to account for the increase in difficulty that will gradually happen in between waves. There are so many things you can do in TF2, and while I know that this video has been short for the most part, that is because I am mostly a casual player, but undoubtedly I'm certain that competitive players or people who are far more skilled at the game than I am would have a significantly more amount of things to say about this game than I do now. But as a casual player, I want to talk about some of my reasoning that I'd recommend this game to you. There are a multitude of reasons that I would recommend this game to someone. For example, as a game that you can play casually, it is a genuinely enjoyable experience that will provide you with a lot of hours worth of entertainment. I personally don't have as many hours in this game, mostly because first-person shooters aren't exactly the kinds of games that I would invest an unbelievable amount of time into, but with the amount of time that I have spent playing this game, I can say that I have enjoyed playing it. Man vs Machine is by far one of my favourite modes to indulge in when it comes to this game. I find its sense of progression to be engaging and interesting to what the rest of the game has, speaking of which is definitely enjoyable. One of the only things I can say about this game is that it can be repetitive at times, but at the same time I feel as though games such as that of Team Fortress 2 and other games of its nature such as that of Phantom Forces are more enjoyed in bursts of entertainment and playtime. While some would enjoy investing all of their time into a game, others would enjoy in the form of the former. Which leads me to the point of this. Whether you enjoy a game like TF2 in short bursts, or whether you seek to invest all of your time into it, I feel as though that this game is worth a chance. Regardless of how you choose to enjoy the game, I feel as though it's worth your time. This game is definitely not for everyone. With most first-person shooters it's either a hit or miss for me, but this game alongside Phantom Forces has been able to break out of that loop. I enjoy these games because I've been doing so for quite some time now, in short bursts of playtime from me. I feel as though that this is the magic of this game, and it leads me to the way that it's been treated by Valve. To me, Valve has a really interesting habit of maltreating their franchises or leaving them on hold for long durations of time. Sometimes we don't even get to see the end product. A prominent example of this is Half-Life 3. While it can be upsetting that sometimes we never get to see the final product of a game, there are reasons as to why this could be. For example, time constraints, budgetary reasons, or sometimes the studio behind a game can never come up with something that they're happy with. No one is entirely sure what happens with these games, but that isn't what I want to talk about. If you've played Team Fortress 2 and have followed it for a long time, you would know that this game is no stranger to neglect. As the game became more and more neglected, the servers became more and more of a bot-infested wasteland, and this affected normal players. For example, these bots would kill them with nigh impossible precision, or other times they would crash the servers entirely. TF2 is a beloved game to many, and it upset them that it had descended beyond a normal problem with the game and extended to the point where they couldn't enjoy a normal game of TF2 anymore. The game is just lucky that it has the vocal community that it does, because due to that vocal nature and the hashtag SaveTF2, we got a response from the team on Twitter, and as we speak, the bot crisis has been resolved. This reinforces the idea that TF2, despite being as old as it is still beloved by many, and the soul it once had continues to flourish through the community that it's built. With that, I want to conclude things. Team Fortress 2, despite its age, is a timeless classic. You don't need me, someone who's as old as the game itself, to tell you that. Team Fortress 2 is a game that I believe is worth your time, whether you choose to enjoy it in bursts of entertainment or for prolonged periods of time. I implore you to give this game a chance if you haven't already. Maybe you'll like it. So, there's the video. I hope you all enjoyed it. I'm not exactly sure how I feel about this video. I definitely feel as though that there was a lot more I could have discussed in regards to this game, but at the same time I'm not entirely sure what I could have talked about. Regardless, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you want to see the list depicting the games I want to talk about in the future, you can find the link to that in the description. Similarly, if you want to follow me, then my socials will be linked in the description, as well as any afterthoughts or messages I may want to add. With that, I haven't really got much else I want to say, so I'll see you all in my next video. I hope you all enjoyed the video, and I wish you all a very pleasant evening.